And people talk about being mayor of New York as maybe being the toughest job in the country. I could argue that mayor of Chicago right now is even tougher. You got issues with the finances, you got issues with violent crime. What are you going to do? Let's start with finances. What can you do to help address that?
Look, there's been some stability in our short-term finances. They're a little more stable today than they have been in the past. Our long-term financial situation is what we've got to address. Hopefully, in this new election, we'll have a new governor in November for the state of Illinois, and I look forward to closely working with him to address the long-term problems in the state and city. They're difficult. No doubt about it. But one of the things that I've tried to do over my years in government and in politics, in government and in business, is bring people together and try to build a consensus. Tough, no doubt about it, especially with these issues. But we've got to get labor, the business community, community organizations throughout the city to sit down, first acknowledge the difficulty, and then see how we address it. It took us a long time to get in this problem, and it is going to take us a long time to get out. But I think the markets will appreciate, hopefully, that they see a plan over time to address this issue.
So as you suggest, your good friend Rahm Emanuel, the current mayor, has really tried to make progress in this area, has done some stuff, but most people in the bond market think it's not quite enough. What is it that you think you can do beyond what Rahm could do? And I noticed particularly you said you got to get the unions to the table. Do they have to give concessions as a practical matter as part of an overall deal to make this work?
Well, look, those who think that all you have to do here is just raise taxes or raise revenue are unrealistic. That's not going to work. So we've got to find ways to be creative. I want to sit down with unions. I want to sit down with the market makers and say, what do we do here to address this? Some people want to just raise taxes. Some people just want to decimate government, the services, and cut. But there's no doubt, we have a unique problem as opposed to New York on our state constitution prevents any sort of changes to benefits that aren't negotiated. So some people in the business community want to change that constitution. But we've got these problems. We've got to deal with them. We've got a strong city. We've got a great city. Obviously, I've spent my life in this city. I'm proud of the family heritage in this city. But the next 4 years are going to be tough. I want to be part of trying to help the city and grow it and work with people. But unless we sit down, I will say this, David. This state government's been dysfunctional for the last 4 years. And hopefully we can get some functioning state government and work together, because Chicago, like New York, is the economic engine that drives this state. And if the city struggles, this state, which is already struggling, will be in much worse shape.
Right, and it's not just the finances. You also have a real issue with gang violence and violent crime in the city of Chicago. We cover it all the time nationwide. It's been there for some time. What can a Bill Daley as mayor bring to that process that hasn't been brought before, including by Rahm Emanuel?
Well, we are in the process, to be honest with you, of formalizing a consent decree in federal court and trying to bring a greater professional into the police department, which will build trust back in the communities. We've got to be much more aggressive in enforcing some of our gun laws. I think our gun laws are lax. I think we've got to be a little more supportive. And also, I think the police men and women feel that the community and the government in some ways has stepped away from supporting them and are questioning them. There have been terrible mistakes done by police officers, but overall, the police department, like most police people around the country, they're out there to protect us. They're working every day to try to protect us, and we've got to support them. And they have to feel that they're supportive as they enforce these laws. We have very lax gun sale laws in states attached to Illinois, like Indiana. So most of the guns that are used in these crimes are coming from states that have pretty easy gun laws. And whether this administration at the national level will ever try to do something about guns remains to be seen. But I think reasonable people want to come together and try to solve some of these gun issues.
So in your campaign, it strikes me you have a challenge that you know exceedingly well, and I'll call it to some extent the Al Gore challenge. You're coming against somebody from your party, in fact, in this case, a good friend of yours, Rahm Emanuel. And the basic challenge I think Al Gore had, and you worked hard for him on that 2000 recount, the basic challenge he had is, do I run with President Clinton or against President Clinton? So do you run with Rahm Emanuel or against Rahm Emanuel?
I'm not running for or against anybody. I'm running for Bill Daley. Okay? Some people are saying to me, oh, your brother's, is this another term of your brother? I'm not looking backwards, David. This is the next 4 years. Rahm Emanuel's term is going to end in April. My brother's term ended years ago. Harold Washington, you can go back through the history of Chicago. This is not about the last 8 years or 40 years. This is about the next 4 years. I'm not running for or against anybody's previous administrations, but I'm trying to set a tone, and we'll set a tone with the people of Chicago, that this is about the next 4 years. And we better look forward, not backwards, if we're trying to make progress in the city.
So finally, Bill, as you well know, we can't have a political discussion in this country these days without referring to Donald Trump. So as you look forward into that election coming up in the new year, how big a factor will Donald Trump, whether you like him or you don't like him, be to the voters in Chicago as they look at Bill Daley and rivals?
I don't think the Trump policies, look, I think there's a very strong feeling in this city that the Trump policies have not been good for urban America. I will say this, in the tax bill that passed, and people can criticize a lot of that, the opportunity funds that Senator Scott insisted be in that are real opportunities for those who have done well in our society to invest in funds that can invest in urban America and hopefully in Chicago, and make a difference in neighborhoods and create jobs. That's a real opportunity to see change in some of these urban settings. But it would be great if this president would focus a little on urban policy and how to improve the lives of people in urban America. But so far, there doesn't seem to be a lot of emphasis on that.
Okay, Bill, thank you so very much. I'd love to talk to you
Good,
again.
David.
The bond markets are going to be watching your campaign pretty carefully, I think, with those Chicago bonds.
Well,
great to talk to you.
I hope so.